This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily match those of WPSL. However, we're the ones that do encourage you to like and share them on social media. Be sure to share them with all of your friends and neighbors. And remember, Roxy's not in tonight, so in for her, the Science of Caring, a special guest host, Bishop Rivers from the Treasure Coast Church of God, Seventh-day Fellowship. Good evening, Bishop Rivers.
Grace and peace be unto you.
All right. Right into the mic there, because these microphones are really, really light, and we got to get right into them. Let me make sure that you're on, okay? Yeah.
How we doing now?
Yeah, there you go. That's working.
All right, okay. All right.
Just don't get away from it. Stay right on it.
We're right. I want to be right on it.
That's right.
We have a fantastic lineup for tonight. Let me just start out saying that I'm so glad to be here. I'm glad to be back. Been away for a minute. Roxy asked me to sit in for her tonight, and she couldn't have sat me in with a better program. We have with us today one of the premier lawyers in this area. He's been practicing law for a number of years. He has an extensive background in law, and he's going to help us with our understanding of the law and maybe how we can apply that understanding to our life and our life situation. We have with us tonight T. Charles Shafer. Everybody knows him. If you're in this area, he's been here long enough to be known by the community and has helped many people along the way. And we're looking for some help from him on tonight in the area of information. We have an expert in our midst, and we can get some information. He's willing to share that information with us. We're happy about it. Good evening. How are you today?
Very fine. Good to see you. Thanks for inviting me to come down and share a little bit.
Amen. Amen. You know, we heard of your practice and some of the people that you've helped along the way, not anyone in particular, but people in general. The type of law that you practice is something that we so vitally need in our communities and in our neighborhoods. So we thank you for choosing that area and being a help to the community. We appreciate
thank
that.
you for that.
And we appreciate it. Well, we're gonna get started in just a moment. We didn't really have a topic, but Roxy explained to me that you were gonna be here tonight, and I said, you know, this might be an opportunity for us to get a little more information to the community concerning the issues of the law. So we named a topic tonight, Conversation with a Lawyer.
How appropriate.
It doesn't get any better than this.
I really think that this is the first time that we've had an opportunity
Is that right?
to have a lawyer on that, you know, and come on and speak to us about the subject.
Okay.
Is what is the law? And I want to start right there. Just in general, I know the law itself is extensive, but just generally, can you help us out with defining that for those that may have asked that question or maybe not asked that question?
Wow, that's a loaded question. What is the law? I think to me, the law is simply a set of rules and precepts that we as a community have decided should govern individuals in their actions and activities, both inside and outside of their homes, so that we can all get along and keep the peace, so to speak.
Okay. So that question, or the answer to that question, is probably going to be the answer to a few other questions as well when it comes to law and how the law is set up, because I know it's not just set up one way. They have like the sections that are called criminal law, and then other areas is called civil law, and the criminal law. What does that cover? What does that mean when if someone says that they're a criminal lawyer or they're involved in criminal law? What does that definition mean?
A criminal defense attorney is an individual that represents people that may go to jail, and that by statute the legislature has determined certain things are prohibited, and if you violate those statutes, then they will bring you before a court, and the representative that you or I may hire to help us out of those situations is a criminal defense attorney, and way different than being in civil court.
Okay. Now, just in that little exchange right there, you said a number of things that is almost a total different language for the average person. You talked about.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's your language, and I hear the same language when I speak to physicians. The same thing. We have a language that's unique to your profession, but it's accurate as far as the way that you describe it. And so when someone hears you say that, understands the language, they know exactly what you're talking about. And one of the terms that you used was legislator or legislation or was
The legislature.
the legislature. Is that now? What is that? Is that someone that actually determines law, or
Those are those folks, those politicians that we have up in Tallahassee that decide laws that and put laws together for all of us in Florida to follow,
Okay.
or not, as the case may be.
Okay. Now I'm not a lawyer, and I don't play
all
one,
right.
and I don't play one on TV either. But I do have some questions that I have.
Sure.
I have down here for you that deals with the law, and even what you were speaking about in Tallahassee. I asked that as a backdrop to some of the.
And Reverend, let me just be. I mean, the legislature in Tallahassee makes statewide laws, but there are other bodies, county commissions, city commissions, those kinds of things. They also make laws that pertain to their various geographical areas within the state of Florida as well.
Okay, now you're right. You jumped ahead of me because you're that good. All right, because those are some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. But I wanted to talk to you about it in a systematic way,
Sure.
because of the way that our system works out, and it has been set up. It's set up specifically in a way that we can follow it. We can have rules, regulations that we can adhere to. We have boundaries that are set because of the law. The initial boundaries that are set for this country in this area, the highest form, is the Constitution. Am I right about that?
There's a state constitution.
No, the U.S. Constitution.
I'm with you, but just to be specific, there's a state constitution of the state of Florida, but we're all governed by the United States Constitution.
Right. That's right. By me preparing myself for this, those are some of the questions that I had to ask.
Sure.
Or prepared to ask, and I hope I can make it in a way that people can follow it. All right, because sometimes things are said in the middle of a conversation that if you don't know the front of the conversation, then you might miss it in the talking.
And you're talking to a lawyer, so when you say constitution, there's a state constitution, and every state that I'm aware of has a constitution within that state, but we're all governed by the federal Constitution, the United States Constitution, as we all know it.
Okay. We're gonna get there. See, he's a lawyer, and he's giving it to me just the way it is. I appreciate that. I actually, as I was saying, I was did a little research on that, and the research that came up was that the supreme law or governing body would be the U.S. Constitution. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. He says
but laws are made to be interpreted.
Oh, you got
And
see this guy.
all those cases that we've had, and the Supreme Courts and the lower courts, they all have to interpret how a particular law or a particular rule may affect that Constitution.
All right. So, and some things that are in line with the U.S. Constitution that may be in the constitution of our state government?
Well, yes and no. I dare say that you wouldn't want a state constitution to take a contrary view that would be in violation of the United States Constitution.
Right. So,
But there are other things that are particular to us as Floridians that may not be, may not have any weight or any thought about someone that lives in Maine, for instance.
right. So each state has an opportunity and an obligation for their state to have their own state constitution
Right.
that's specific to the needs of the state, and as long as those needs are is not in conflict with the U.S. Constitution.
I would agree with you, but again, there's usually a lot of litigation about that whole process as well.
And I hope you guys are following us on with this. He's really making good sense to me, and he's giving me some direction, okay, in terms of how things are, because things are not just random, and there's a reason for us to be able to, or we should, as a citizen, if we don't comprehend it, we need to be under or have someone that really knows all of the ramifications and all the ins and outs and knows the pecking order. What's that sound? The pecking. I don't want to do this now. Excuse me. Sorry, y'all.
I guess the Facebook feed is getting a phone call.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. The pecking order. All right. So, how would that work? If in terms of what order things are set up with in the judicial system, as far as courts are concerned, or rules are concerned, and rules that have to be adhered to. There's a definite way that's set up.
Well, there is a hierarchy. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And within the state of Florida, we have traffic court,
Right.
we have county court,
Mm-hmm.
and county court in the criminal the criminal sphere deals with misdemeanors. Those are crimes punishable by no more than a year in the county jail and $1,000 fine, or both. And when you get past that, you have the circuit courts, and they deal with everything that is considered to be a felony. And there's different levels of felonies. And then on the civil side, county courts can deal with matters that have claim for damages of $15,000 or less, and then everything over that would go to the circuit court. So we have circuit courts that deal in civil and criminal, and we have county courts that deal in civil and criminal.
When you say circuit court, is that a court that's always in session, or is it in the same location, or does it just cover a certain locality, or how does that work?
We have judicial circuits in Florida. We're in the 19th Judicial Circuit, comprised of Okeechobee and Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Indian River County. That's our judicial circuit. And within that circuit, we have our various county and circuit courts. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I was raised in South Carolina, and we used to have circuit judges, and they would ride the circuit, and they would spend a week over there and a week over there and all that kind of stuff. Generally now, though, in our judicial district, our judges are assigned for no less than a year generally, unless you're a floating judge. But otherwise, you have if you're in Mount Martin, you're in Martin County for a year or two, and before they decided they just made a switch at the beginning of the year for various judges to move into different categories and different different assignments.
Is that an office that's assigned to the judge, or is it one that he's voted into? Or you said it's no less than a year, but how long can he stay in office?
Well, you can stay in office until you're 70, or did they raise that to 75 recently as a judge? But you have to stand for re-election, and or if a judge leaves in the middle of his or her term, then the governor gets to appoint a judge to serve out the rest of the predecessor's term.
Okay, I hope you guys are getting this, and if you have any questions concerning anything that was said tonight by myself or by T. Charles Shafer, the lawyer, Esquire, you can call us. You can get a live answer or make a live response to what you've been hearing. If you call 340-1590 WPSL 1590 on your dial. Just dial it up with your question because we got the answers. All right. Let us go a little bit further. Then if this has been helpful to you, you can call in and let us know that it's been of some help. And if you need some additional information about what we're speaking about, stay on the line. We might have it coming up shortly. Right. Okay, let's just...
You want to go ahead and take a break?
We can take a break.
Because we usually take a little break to let everybody know about the sponsors of Careology. Here they come right now, and if you're thinking about it, you can always go to givecarebag.com and inquire about becoming a sponsor. I'm sure that Roxy would get a big kick out of that. All righty, 340-1590. Any questions for the lawyer? You're listening to Careology, and we'll be right back.
Thinking of building your next home or renovating? Come see us at Grozer Builders. We will create a home suited for your lifestyle. With years of experience means we give you a complete professional service from a dream to a concept. You will get the best results, best value, best quality is what you get from Grozer Builders. Visit us at grozerbuilders.com. You deserve better. You deserve Grozer. If you could reimagine the way you buy a car, what would you do? Make it simple, make negotiations disappear, demand transparency, then experience amazing at your Treasure Coast Lexus dealer. Car Buying Simplified. Treasure Coast Lexus is a proud sponsor of Careology. Every Tuesday at 6:05 p.m., caring and supporting for our community. Car Buying Simplified. Check out your Treasure Coast Lexus dealer.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
We now return to Careology, the science of caring, and in once again for Roxy this evening, Bishop Rivers from the Treasure Coast Church of God Seventh-day Fellowship.
Grace and peace be unto you, God our Father, and all you that are listening. The Lord bless you. Okay, let's go in with a few more questions. What we've heard so far has been so enlightening, so we thank you for that. We appreciate that,
Sure.
those honest answers, and it made a connection for me in some areas. But those are not the end of the questions. And I know that some people have an opportunity, or at least a question in their mind, and may not ever have an opportunity to ask a question, even with the call-in request or the opportunity to call in. They think about it, but may not ask it. So I'll ask it for them. And maybe an answer, or maybe a question they've been pondering for some time. Let me ask you, why do we need the law? Why is the law necessary for society in
You're
general?
going to be getting my opinion on that now.
That's okay.
I think we need laws to keep chaos from breaking out. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
That without laws, it would be almost survival of the fittest, and people would invariably take advantage of other people, and it would be chaos. And I think over our centuries of learning how to live with one another. Laws have developed for any number of reasons, but I think primarily to make sure that we're a society that of the laws that helps everyone.
Yeah, that's great.
my thought on it.
No, I think you have a lot of people that are in agreement. I'm one of them as well, because we would have chaos and lawlessness
Right.
if there were no restraints on the conduct of the world, of people in the world. That you need to have barriers, legal barriers from where people won't exceed those barriers or those limits. Okay, or at least they know what they are, in order that they don't break them or go over them or just disregard them. So if you don't have a law, then how can you break the law? You have to have the law
Agreed.
in place in order for you to have some control, and that's what I think it also creates a manner of control, not being controlling, but it prevents things from getting out of order.
I agree.
Okay.
Certainly.
Amen. All right. So I want to ask you a few more questions about that. I think you mentioned or alluded to it. What is the origin of law? You spoke about society and going back. What is the origin of law? Why was law? Where did law come from?
Again, you're going to get opinion.
All right. It's all right.
I think law originated with conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict between individuals, and later conflict with corporations, whatever, conflicts between individuals and their governments. And as soon as you asked that question, I referred myself back in my head to law school, and there is statutory law, and then there was common law. The common law came first. It was the common law of two people quarreling, and someone setting in authority having to make a decision between the two quarreling factions. And from there, it led to the common law of, if that happens again, then here's how we're going to resolve that. And eventually it became, as society grew, we had folks that decided to give power to those legislatures that we were talking about earlier, to take those laws and put them together and in statutory form, and those regulations that we would be governed by. But yeah, I think that originally there was some conflict. Whatever the conflict was that arose, we decided that we were going to deal with it in this fashion, in the legal fashion, versus you pull a knife and I pull a gun and we fight it out and have more of that chaos we talked about.
When I was in seminary, there was the question was asked, because they have biblical laws, and some of the laws that we have right now are from that area as well, from the Bible and the Bible time, and like certain things that are innately wrong. All right. That if nobody came and told you, your spirit would tell you shouldn't kill somebody.
Sure.
It would tell you that you shouldn't take something that doesn't belong to you. It would also tell you that you shouldn't be laying with somebody else's wife, or it's a lot of things that almost is just a part of it's encoded on our DNA. All right. But that doesn't mean that people are going to follow that. What it means is that if it was not there, then people would just be totally out of control. So the necessity of, just because of what mankind is, all right, and not just here in the U.S. and not just in this time, but through the history of mankind, there was always a need for some type of law system to be set up. And when I remember you were talking about when you were in law school, but when I was in seminary, I remember there was a king that from Persia that had a law system. They said there was some people are still basing modern day law on this guy's system of writing things down. I think his name is Hammurabi or something, Hammurabi Code of Hammurabi. And he wrote wrote like 300 laws down. And some people incorporate some of the things he said or the same type of laws into their law system. So historically, I would imagine, I won't say with a certainty, that there was always a need for law. There was a law when the two brothers, one killed the other, that they knew that murder was not something that should have been done to anybody. But thank you for your answer. Well, let me see. We have a few more questions that we want to ask you, or a few more things, or just a flow of how things go. And I wrote down some things in the way that I picked it up, and some of it dealt exactly what you said as far as the Constitution. And what I got was that the Constitution is how we govern ourselves. And the federal statutes were one of the things that I looked at. The regulations was another thing that I looked at. And legislation was only one portion that I looked at, and you alluded to that. But what is the executive area? All right, and when you're speaking about law, there's one is legislation and one is executive. Do you know? Can you?
Well, there's the division in the law, in the way our system of government operates. You have the executive branch, you have the legislative branch,
right,
and then you have the judicial branch.
Right.
And the legislature creates laws, let's say, and the executive branch either carries out the process of the law or makes sure that those laws are followed, and then the judicial branch determines the appropriateness of how the laws are applied. I think that's a very simplistic view, but I think it works in terms of those three branches, and they're not always working together as we've seen in our national politic in the last number of years. But that's the Madisonian system of democracy that we've taken, and in our federal level with all of our states and many of our individual states operate. We have a governor; he's in the executive branch of government, and then legislature, and then our judicial branch, especially here in Florida.
Yeah. So the executive branch is in charge of what area in our judicial system? Enforcement, or
Can be. It can be. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sure. And I think our executives have what we know as the bully pulpit to try to make our legislature take up things and make decisions that will affect Floridians and if we're on a national level, all citizens. And obviously our executive for our United States is our president,
Okay. So
chief executive.
So there's almost a duality when you look at like maybe the federal and the state government. All right, there's a duality because they both you have legislation in the you have legislation in the federal area, executive area you have in the federal area, and also what was the other one? Was it judicial? Was that the other?
Judicial branch.
And you have the judicial in the state, but you have the same thing in the state. Am I right?
I would say yes, and that is when our founding fathers got together, especially Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, to name just a few, and decided that when they created the United States, it was with that idea that there would be a federal government and there would be individual state governments would have their own autonomy, let's say. And I think even the Constitution says that if it's not spoken of and dealt with in our Constitution, then those laws will be dealt with, are delegated to the states to make that determination.
So
within their states, because each state, as we've talked about, might be a little different.
so right now there's like a big dispute, and I notice it, with the state government and the federal government. I mean, like in real time, okay, that there's a big dispute. There's some governors that want things one way, and the federal government, which is executive government, where the president sits, wants things in another way. Would you say that that's something that needs to be worked on now, so there's some type of unity in the judicial system that we can all live with?
I would say that there has been tension between the states and the federal government since the creation of our United States, in some form or fashion. I
That's
mean,
right.
we had a huge war in the middle of the 1800s because of conflicts from some states versus others and our federal government, and I think that's always going to be a system of tension.
Is that a part of the norm for democracy? Is that a part of the norm? The conflict that you have there between those branches of governments?
The democracies that I'm familiar with, I think that are built that way. There are some democracies that really they don't have the dual system that you spoke of, that you mentioned. But certainly, I think it works well for us for the most part.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so
But again, there's always going to be friction.
Yeah. So are you saying that they have governments where everything runs from just one place, that you don't have that breakdown that we have in our system?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And they still call it a democracy, but just a different.
It's just a different form.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if it's been helpful to you, but what you're saying to me is very helpful to me, and I really appreciate your knowledge of not just standing in the courtroom, but just allowing the public to be able to glean something from you on a level that maybe we can understand how things work. I know I'm going to leave here the more richer for it, from just being able to sit down to sit down and talk to you, and for you to have a conversation, not just it was really a conversation because it's going both ways. That we can get something. I'll walk out of here much better than I came in here. So I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for asking the questions and raising the issues.
Yeah, and I see that you're equipped to answer them. So that I appreciate, because
Sure.
it's not L.A. law.
No.
This is the real deal, and that's what we live in a great country. We have a great tradition. We have a great system that's set up, and the more we know about that as citizens, the more we can appreciate it, and not just look at it with our eyes closed to that. This is not something that's random. This is something that's like a well-oiled machine. Sometimes you get a little chink in it or whatever, but it was set up very well by the founding fathers, I believe. I think so. I mean, I wouldn't live anyplace else.
Right.
On any other system. Well, let me see. So if you guys have any questions, we have the good lawyer here. He's answering every question with a really good answer for us that are inquiring minds. So if you have a question, I invite you to call in, ask your question. If not, then I'm going to continue with him for a few more moments, and then I'm going to let him just have some final statements. How much time do we have?
About 19 minutes or so.
We still got a few
19,
more.
yeah.
We still have some time.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. The other thing I want to ask you about, as far as just terminology, okay, in the legal system, there's a lot of terminology or definitions that if we understood them, it would make it clearer. For some of them may be just the repeating of the same thing, just saying it in a different way. But let me just ask you quickly. I have like about rules. What is? I hear that we're connected to the judicial system or our government system. Rules. How would you categorize the definition, or how would you define rules?
What is a rule?
Yeah.
It's something that's been, well, it doesn't even have to be written. It could be an oral rule, but generally it's something that's written down so that people can know that this is the way that this is what you can do and this is what you cannot do. Just establishes those guardrails that I think we mentioned briefly earlier.
Yeah, and you said something earlier, and I was limited in my understanding of it when you spoke about common law. All right, and the closest I've come to common law was a common law marriage, and that was it. Okay, and beyond that, I didn't know. But now, from your explanation, what I seem to think that you're saying that some of these things, this law, is based on what happened prior to this time, and how that was handled, and almost like an established way was created by how it was handled prior to now. It's a long standing of handling things, this situation in a certain way.
I would agree that that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. So,
Florida doesn't really recognize common law, though, right? That's not. There are other states that do.
There are, especially Louisiana. But everything, I would argue, is statutorily based in Florida. But if you look if you're looking into where did those laws that have become statutes really spring from, you go way back to basically Britain and the establishment of laws by common law, which were the conflicts that people had and the rulings. That's the whole idea of stare decisis with the judicial branch. What was the precedent? What came before?
that's the word.
And how do we look at that in determining and applying it to this particular issue that we have now?
Now, all the circumstances may not be the same in every single case, but overall, if you injured me, you should be able to make me. I heard this expression: make me whole again. All right, by doing certain things, so that if you have a judge in front of you, and doesn't need necessarily a jury to do it, the judge does that, right? With he handles common law. He makes a decision about it as I don't know if you call him an arbitrator or what, but he makes a decision.
That's how that was the origination of the law came about through the common law and making those decisions. But we're kind of mixing a little bit of apples and oranges. The whole idea of law, or at least making the law work, is seeking fairness and justice for an aggrieved party, whether that party is you or I as citizens, or companies, or agencies, and making sure that the laws are followed. And when you were saying about interpreting, that's what lawyers do. We say, well, that particular case doesn't really apply here because of, or that one is close, and this is why it really we should look at this particular set of cases and precedent as opposed to that set of cases or precedent. And we've had decisions that turn on a single word, an interpretation of a single word in our laws.
So when we look at the Constitution, and we say, I think this is unfair because it's unconstitutional, all right? And you go in and do, I don't know, some type of review of it and see and make a case for it, and just like be able to determine whether or not it breaks some type of established constitutional amendment or whatever they call it. I don't know what the right term is. It breaks that, so it should not be allowed. But if you go in and say that, hey, listen, there's nothing that's being said or nothing that's being done that's against the Constitution, it should stand and be allowed to go forward. You understand what I'm saying? I hope I did this, man.
A little bit. I think that you use the Constitution as a starting point.
Right.
And the Constitution is our blueprint, but then when we fill in the details, if you want to think of it this way, are the statutes that are brought out that help us make that Constitution work in our everyday lives. And that's where some of the big questions come is, well, what I've done, my company has done, what I've done as an individual, have I impeded or obstructed or run afoul of some statutory situation? And if I have, this is why. If I have not, then this is why. And but again, that if you think of there are libraries filled with decisions about that the relatively small United States Constitution that we have, interpreting what those words mean.
That's a big question, brother.
And over time, those interpretations change as our society has changed.
So what effect does that have on the Supreme Court when they have to come in and make a decision about something? Are they judging the constitutionality of that particular thing that's set before them, to whether depending on what they say, it stands or not stands, or how does that work?
That whole situation about what have other Supreme Courts in the past, the conditions precedent to what the prior cases. It's in the law. It's known as stare decisis. It's been decided this way, and are we going to continue that, or are we going to make a change? And that's some of the contested situations that we have now that are bandied about in the newspapers and media. What is the Supreme Court going to do on various situations?
So, like Roe v. Wade, right now.
I was trying not to get into specifics.
Okay.
Go ahead, Robert. That's all right.
That's a major issue there.
So you have that, and the decision was made about that.
Sure.
Okay, and the decision was standing for a long time, and now the climate is a little bit different, and there's an argument being made by some that, first of all, that's not something that's a federal issue. It's something that's a local issue. It shouldn't even be handled on a federal level. It should be handled on a local level. So each state should be able to have the jurisdiction over that rather than the federal government. Am I right? I hope I'm on the right.
There are a number of people that believe that way.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
There are a number of people that believe that it is something that needs to be dealt with nationally, and that Roe versus Wade needs to stand. So we have that, we have there's every time there's a yes, there's a no, and That's why we have courts to make those decisions.
I love this stuff. I mean, you can see, honestly, you pull the curtain back on a lot of these things just with your explanation. I'm really grateful. I hope you guys know that we have been blessed above measure. We have a prince here that's willing to share with us information and be able to give us a better insight as to how we're living, and the things that are in our favor, because nothing that exists today means that it's going to exist forever. That things may change as we change. So again, I thank you for that. I'm not going to throw any more curveballs at you. I hope it wasn't one, but you answered. But you answered the question. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we have T. Charles Shafer here, and he's doing such a wonderful job. I mean, he's fantastic just in the point of just understanding. So I'm surely when you have a client then and you have to they have a situation and you have time, and there's a need for you to take care of their case, that you sit down with them and try to explain to them in not a legalistic form, but in just plain English, what their challenges are, what your challenges are, and what your hopes are as far as whatever their problems.
Sure. But you're talking about the KISS method.
Yeah.
And keep it simple and straightforward. And when you're dealing
I learned that another way.
I've heard the other.
Yeah, I did too, but I cleaned it up for radio.
Thank you.
And multimedia. It's we have a language, as you mentioned, all of our own in the law, and lawyers can. You get two lawyers together at a party, and we can start talking law and just bore the tears out of people. So part of it is trying to break it down and making it real for each client as to whatever they're going through. If they're dealing with a landlord that's giving them trouble, if they're dealing with a son or a daughter that got arrested, if they're going through a family court matter. And we always say that family court is where you find where you find the best people acting in the worst way possible sometimes because of the emotions and the struggles that they're having with their family dynamic. And a lot of it is making sure that folks know that there will be, generally it comes to pass, and the good book says it comes to pass. It doesn't come to stay. Hopefully.
That's right.
You got to try to instill in them the fact that you're going to have to work through this. This is going to be a struggle, but you got to get through it. One thing I would add, unsolicited though, the one question I usually get is from folks that find out I'm a criminal defense attorney is, what's the one thing you can tell me? The one thing you can tell me that I can take with me and I can put in my pocket and I can know if I ever get in trouble with the law, what should I do? And I say, do not do anything. Just the one thing you need to tell them is, I don't want to answer any questions, so I'll speak with my lawyer. Just be quiet. And a lot of folks have been brought up to believe that we're supposed to give them everything, tell them our side of the story. There'll be time for that. I just say, listen, tell them I don't want to answer any questions without my lawyer. And it cuts against the grain for a lot of people, but that's the best advice that I can give folks that are in that situation.
Now, I know you want to ask a question, but this is really amazing, the way what he said and when he said it, because that was my last question. What should I do if I happen to be stopped, detained, or arrested? What should I do? When should I call? When do I know I need a lawyer? That was my question to you, and I think you summed it up really well in the answer that you gave in terms of interaction with...
Well, you don't have to be impolite. You can just say, no, I'm not going to. I just want my lawyer here before I answer any questions.
That's right.
That's all.
That's right.
They've got to. If you look on it as long as they're treating you with a measure of respect, they got to do what they got to do. You can always, I have not to put too personal a stamp on it, but I have a mixed race son, and I told him, it's just who you are. You be respectful, and we can deal with it on the back end. You get stopped, right. you get in trouble.
That's right.
I'll come in, just be nice, be respectful, and that's what I would suggest to people. The better way is to just shut down and get your lawyer on the phone and get somebody in there to help you.
Valuable information.
A phone number, perhaps, if I ever need a criminal defense lawyer?
772-467-2601.
Say it again, please.
Sure. 772-467-2601.
All righty. Hey.
So this has been amazing. I know this has been beneficial to those that have been listening, and you can run this program over again on Facebook whenever you have time. We're going to be wrapping up now.
Yes,
all right.
absolutely.
This has been a great show. Thank you so much, Mr. Shafer. We appreciate every word that you said. You made sense, and you gave us good. Bye-bye. I'm waving. So long. Good night. God bless you.
WPSL, Port St. Lucie.